everybody, welcome back to Road to Master. I hope you're all having an amazing day. We're starting off with the white pieces against a 2038 from the United States. And you will see as well, we're playing 15 plus 10. We've not played 15 plus 10 since basically I first started out the channel, which was almost a year ago now. And I stopped playing because I don't know, I felt, well, firstly, I felt we were making the videos too long. And secondly, I was relying too much on the increment rather than playing a relatively okay pace. And then we switched to 10-minute flat for a bit. So we're going back now and we'll see how it goes. Let me know how you feel about it. I know the 10-minute flat can be a bit more exciting, but you know, I feel like it also limits my ability to explain what's going on for the newer players. So we will see. For sure. We have a Grand Prix here. Probably Bishop C. No, but we can't do Bishop C4 because they've played A6. They play A6. I think we just go D3, right? Because they've basically blocked off all of these light squares, so we can't play with the bishop there. So we'll play with the bishop on the fianchetto square. Makes some sense, I guess. What are we trying to do in the Grand Prix is a very good question, and to be honest, I'm still learning the answer. I don't really know. Usually, you're trading this bishop off for the knight. So with both of these moves, it makes things a bit awkward. They're potentially looking for a d5 break. So maybe that's something we look into ourselves. Can we play e5 here? One thing I also found out is that f5, also a very reasonable break. If you can get castled though. And we can't currently get castled, so maybe e5 is a way to play it. e5, knight e4. They go d5. And there is no there because the queen and the bishop both cover that square. Which is smart. So we'll just play, we'll just stick with what we do. And this is almost actually very similar to the King's Indian attack, which is what we play when we play knight f3 first. The only difference is in the King's Indian attack we don't have f4 because our knight blocks that square, and we usually go ahead and play c3 as well, and this knight comes to d2. So there are some slight differences, but the overall plan I think is very, very similar. I think the biggest change in the position would be the idea of f5, which breaks open the position. I'd be tempted to do that soon. If we can either get the bishop to h3 or g2. h3's potentially looking to win back the pawn. But also maybe like a d5 then. And it's sort of like a reverse pin, which I'm not a fan of. You know, they're sort of pinning themselves. They're lining up a discovery, basically, is what I'm trying to say with this pawn. So that's something we have to be aware of. So maybe g2 is the correct way to play. And put pressure on this knight. We could eventually trade off the knight for the bishop for the knight, like we wanted to sort of do right from the start, but they decided not to let us. What's their plan in development? They very much could fianchetto and play safe on the king side. They could also get the bishop to e7 and castle. Also very practical, I think. They also are looking for d5, I think, at any given point. We could ignore that. I think there are lines where we do ignore that. If we could get e5 with some good backup, I think is the word, that would be nice. But I think f5 is our primary break here. What are we doing with this knight is a good question. I think we have two options. Three, maybe. We could go to a4, I guess, and target this pawn. Maybe jump in on b6 if the queen ever moves. Alternatively, we could play like an e5, get the knight to e4, and then jump in on one of these squares. maybe even g5 as well. On e4 as well, we're hitting the c-pawn, which is covered now for the bishop, but could change. And the other plan is to go to e2. Maybe look for a d4 push. If we ever push f5, it could come to f4, which could be very flexible depending on what they do. We'll see. We'll see. Like we said, this bishop's staying on the diagonal. We're definitely castling queenside. I don't think there's many lines where you castle queenside as white against the Sicilian, because they already sort of have their pawns primed to break through, which isn't ideal. What's this bishop doing? I don't want to come to e3, and the reason I don't want to come to e3 is because we've got this pawn structure on the king side. This knight has a hole on g4, which means that if the bishop goes to g3, they could get knight g4 with a tempo on the bishop. Not ideal. They decide to go for their lousy queenside attempt. We're castling kingside, so I'm not sure why. I guess they want the bishop there. But I think we look for f5, and I think we're happy. I said that weird. We're happy. I just need to calculate this out a bit. F5. Takes. I think the bishop would go there. Either that or we just play g. I think bishop g2 is safer. Safer first, and then we can look at f5. And the reason I think we can do that is because if they take, we can actually think about castling and letting them take this. They decide to go there. I think that's fine, right? We're not really doing much with this knight anyway, and we sort of wanted to go e2. Wanted to play f5 anyway, so we get the hole on f4, like we said. I think is fine. We could get c3 now if we really wanted to control d4 that badly. But they are still very much underdeveloped, which I'm a big fan of. We've developed 3 of our pieces. We're about to castle with potential attacks on the king. I think we're looking really nice here. I think we are looking really, really nice here. A ton of time left as well. Wow. We've only used, 1 and a quarter minute? That can't be right. That can't be right at all. Really? Wow. I guess we get 10 seconds added on per move, but yeah, that's still insane. Yeah, f5 is definitely the way to go. And then we're opening up lines for our bishop as well. f5, they push. I think that's just nice for us. They're not castling queenside, so we just get this good kingside attack going. If they take, I think we castle. And we live out this idea of, attacking the king, basically. So let's go f5. That was the plan the whole time, so we might as well go for it at some point. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We will see. They've not decided to push their d-pawn, which I think is a mistake. If they decide to ignore this and we get e5 with a tempo, we can think about f6, which would be potentially devastating. I think for now it's fine. They could take. But then we get our bishop out with tempo on the queen. Maybe things look cool. We will see. What are they going to do? They have 3 options, and this is generally, you sort of have 4 options generally. They don't really have a 4th. The 4th would be counter-attacking. But the first is they can take, at which point we said we castle, and give them the pawn. Secondly, they could push. And like I said, I think pushing works well for us, because we probably still castle. Either that or we could think about pushing these. Yeah, we have a plan, at least, if they push. And then ignore it. I don't think ignoring works out in their favor. I think we could just castle if they ignore. I don't think we want to take, because they take with the D pawn. Things look generally nice. So we want to sort of leave this here. They decide to push. Which I don't think is the correct thing to do. The problem is this knight's now looking a bit in the mud. But I guess after like G3, it has potential. It has a lot of potential. Maybe. Maybe is the key word. Yeah, where do we go from here? Probably H3. H3 is the anchor for this whole attack, really. We can't push G4 because of this knight. They could go H5 here, but then we get like a bishop or knight on C5, on G5, and that's pretty permanent, right? They can't do much to get rid of that. And we do potentially still have the option of castling queenside. If we really, really need to. If this opens up a lot and becomes a bit unsafe, then we do have the option to castle queenside, which I'm a fan of. Queen there, we potentially have takes with some tactics. D6 seems to hold on to the knight, though. Yeah, so maybe not. But we will see. Yeah, they decide to go H5, and now I think the bishop goes to F5. And just make this hard for the knight. You know, the pin is there. If they move the queen and we decide to take, they're not castling. They're not castling kingside at all. They decide to unpin. That's fine. I think now Queen D2 is okay. We're preparing long castles. And we're covering our bishop as well, which is fine. And our bishop is covered twice, so they don't have any tactics like knight takes e4 or anything, which is good. Very, very good. Yeah, where is this knight going? It's a bit misplaced, potentially. G4, not really an option anymore. I don't think. Yeah. What do we do? Maybe an A3 and try to break up this pawn structure a bit, but then we're not castling queenside either. So where do we castle? We could try like neutralize this sort of pawn. But I think they do always have some breaks regardless. And worst case, they get the open file, which is not nice. So I really don't want to castle kingside anymore. I would think about maybe Queen E3 to hit this pawn. I'd like to get rid of this knight to make this weak. They do have D6 then, but this bishop then looks a bit ugly and a bit trapped in, I think, which is good for us. We could potentially reroute this knight this way and hit this pawn that way. They don't really have a c4, but they could go like a5, a4. Yeah, and it is actually defended as this pawn, which is annoying. At that point, I would have liked to get my knight to d2, but the queen is in the way, so maybe queen e3 is not a bad idea. To get this knight all the way round here to get to c4 as an outpost. That's one hell of a maneuver. What is queen a5? What is queen a5 doing? What? That doesn't seem right. That does not seem right. No, I refuse to believe that's a move. Well, now knight c2 comes and they don't have a5, right? Um, yeah. No, they can't stop us going to b3. They don't have c4. If they castle queenside, then all these breaks work in our favour. So maybe we move this knight about. I don't see a reason not to. I don't see a reason not to. Knight goes... So we've taken this knight from b1 to e2. We're going to c1. We're going to b3. And we're going to d2. It's going on a journey. It is going on a right journey as that knight. And it's weird. It is a weird move for sure. And these knight maneuvers are always tricky. You have to make sure you're not wasting time. But I think it's so worth it in order to get your pieces in a better position. And one of the quotes I remember from Jeremy Silman's How to Reassess Your Chess, that always sticks with me, is you have to insist that your pieces are well placed. You know, it's not going to happen unless you make it happen, which is always something that sort of defaults in my brain whenever I'm thinking about like positioning my pieces or whatever. You know, I'm the only one that can make my pieces better, so we're going to make them better. Now queen e3 comes with a pin. So a4, knight d2, we're coming in here now. Maybe we can think about the knight with a check or something. I'm liking this, you know. The bishop, I think, will eventually come to life. There are going to be breaks somewhere. And we can readjust the bishop for now if we need. But it's all about this knight at the meantime. Yeah, they decide to go there. Now, knight d2. I really like the knight there. Bishop a6. Bishop a6. How do we lock this up? How do we lock this up? Do we go b3? Yeah, I think we go b3 actually. I think we go b3. We can think about knight takes, but we can also think about either pawn takes. If we take with the c pawn, we're getting a ton of pressure on c5, which can't really do anything yet. Ooh, that can't be right. There's no world where that's the right answer. There is no world where that is the correct answer. Yeah, no, that's definitely wrong. Taking was 100% the better thing to do. I'm happy. I'm very happy here. Thing is, if we do this, our light squared bishop is permanently dead until we take this pawn. And if we can actually take that pawn is a big if. But we take this knight, I think we have a really nice amount of pressure on especially these two loose pawns. The question is, do we take this knight first or second? They take with the pawn. This is interesting. We definitely castling queenside because this is so solid. I think we do this and we castle queenside. There's no way they can get out of this because we're threatening to take this and just practically win the game. They could go queen c7. Is something they could do, but I don't think that works. We have to keep this knight here for d4. They can't be getting away with that. Surely not. Do I want to take this knight? I sort of don't, but I sort of do at the same time. We're going to castle queenside anyway, because that's just logical. The thing is, they're going to really struggle to get this rook in the game unless they move their king either onto the firing line, at which point, like, knight takes potentially works. This knight's a bit in the way. Or yeah, I think we do want to get rid of this knight so we can maybe even go rook d5, and then double up the rooks at least. Get the queen involved maybe as well. We're threatening to take potentially, or take this. I think we're not losing this. Which is a good place to start. And then from there we can start building on our threats and try to push for a win. I think this is one of the situations where we can definitely try push. Yeah, because we're going to naturally have pressure on this pawn. And they have weaknesses over here as well. So they have to defend this because we naturally have pressure on it. At the same time, they're going to have to move their pieces away from this side of the board in order to defend this pawn. So if we can get, actually, this bishop potentially could be very nice on f2. If we can get this knight on d5, how it gets to d5 is another question. They decide to go knight d4. I don't have to do anything here. I could potentially even go c3 if I really wanted to. I might take this. In fact, I'm going to take this. I'm going to take that. Yeah, this knight was annoying. So I got rid of it. The bishop wasn't doing anything much because I think it was contested with the queen. They were sort of getting in each other's way. So to trade off my bishop that was sort of getting in my queen's way with the knight that was being annoying, I think was a good trade. We can think about this. They could take with either pawn. I think taking with the e pawn is actually more logical. It depends what they take with here. I think. If they take with the pawn, maybe you want to take with the c pawn. If they take with the bishop, maybe you want to take with the e pawn. Takes, e pawn takes, queen f4. Okay, what do they take with here? I think it would be wrong to take with the c pawn. You're blocking in your bishop and you don't really have any attack on the c file. So I think you have to take with the e pawn. At which point I still have pressure potentially on d6, not really. But we have also the breaks on like g4, g5. We could even go e5 if we ever get the chance. But this bishop's defending that square quite nicely. They could even go bishop to e5 itself. So it would have to be all pawn breaks on the king side. Maybe it's a bit more drawish now. But we do also have pressure on the h-pawn as well. We go like queen e2, bishop f3. G6 takes. Then we move over to the f-file. We have g4. Pawn takes, bishop takes. Looks nice. But at the end of the day, it is an opposite coloured bishop endgame. So, who knows? I don't think it's logical to be putting this down to time. Because we're playing such a longer game. So our opponent should be able to win if we do blunder or anything. And likewise, we should be able to win. They decide to take that way. I don't think that was the right call. I don't think that was the right call. How do we make the most of it? I think we start off going e2, queen e2, and keep to this plan of bishop f3. We can potentially move to here to hit the b pawn as a cheap threat at some point. They still are gonna really struggle getting this rook in the game. Yeah, still really gonna struggle, which makes me hesitant to play g4 because then we're trading off their bad piece. They decide to go there. But they have no real threat. That's my like what I'm finding weird. We could take this. I'm not going to. I think pushing's better. Yeah, I think pushing's way better. They have check though. They have check. Check is really annoying, actually. We might struggle making anything out of this. Yeah, I didn't see check. Yeah, that's irritating. Okay, maybe we go queen d2. Let this hang because we're gonna win it back, right? Maybe even not though. They have bishop h4. So we just take. At least if we take, we have potential rook sacks, right? So we have to take. We have to take. And then we go rook g1. Or probably rook h g1. Am I worried about this pawn? Not really. I think taking was the right call to open up lines. Because otherwise we just lock it up. They get the check. They play f6. Like no one's winning anything. At least here we have the opportunity if we really want it for the exchange sack. Which I think if anyone's going to be getting any sort of counterplay here, it will be from the exchange sack. I don't think taking with the bishop was right. I don't think taking with the bishop was right at all. Which rook do we go with? We probably have to go with the d rook, right? We probably have to go with the d rook. Again, they don't have any pushes at all. They don't have check anymore either. They go f6. They hang the pawn. Great for us. Great for us. And I'd probably take the exchange sack then. Maybe. Maybe. And we always have h4 as well. We always have h4. Which is a benefit from taking. They don't have the outpost because h4 is scary. They're even at risk of getting their bishop trapped if they play f6 to anchor down the g5 square. They're low on time. They're very low on time, which is surprising because we're up on time for once. We are actually up on time. That's insane. That is insane. Yeah, I think they've made some questionable decisions. Whether it's enough to actually win this game or not is another question. Yeah, it's hard to tell. It's really hard to tell with these opposite coloured bishops. I really hope they don't flag. Because I've played this time control specifically so nobody flags. So time is not a problem. You know, it's more of a encouragement than a problem, you know. How do we make the most of this? I love the bishop here for us. It's doing absolutely nothing. Absolutely nothing. So let's get the rooks doubled up, I guess. The problem is we get the rooks doubled up, we potentially lose the h pawn. So maybe we just go like bishop there first. Bishop there though, then maybe that happens. But with the king in the board, they can't really allow that, right? Yeah, I think we do that. I think we do that. Do we do that? Yeah, I think we do that. I think we do that. I think they might play king e7 here. Would be my prediction. To connect the rooks at least. Maybe then you've got some drawing chances. I think would be a very logical move. You don't want to go d7. Not because it's bad, necessarily. But it just walks into potential complications where you can't have g6 as a move. To double up their rooks, though, they would have to lift this up. Which, at worst, opens it up to an attack. At best, gives us a tempo, you know? I really hope they don't flag. Don't flag, please. I want to play this out. I really want to play this out. You've got a decent position. It's not the end of the world. No. Please. Play a move. Oh. Unlucky. Unlucky. That was a fun game, though. A lot of planning. We definitely went wrong. Not wrong, but suboptimal, I think, is a good word. Yeah, let's see what this review says. Definitely missed some opportunities. I think a miss is the correct thing to say. Yeah. 79.3 versus 81.7. Wow. That is an incredibly even roller coaster chart. Yeah. I mean, very slightly better for us. Then a bit more better for us. I think capping out at what was that? -1.4, and then about -8 at the end there. So it would be hard to make anything out of it, but it's better for us, you know. So we know a bit of the theory here. D3 if they ever play A6. So in the Grand Prix, your options are either bishop to B5 or bishop to C4. The problem with A6, sorry, is that it sort of denies either. Because A, you can't go there because pawn takes. If you go to C4 and they've played A6, then they have B5. In fact, I will just show you. You go there. They have B5, and then you can't go to B3 because then they have C4, and it's nasty for sure. So it cuts off both of these. So you're sort of just forced to play D3 and play with the fianchettoed bishop. And it looks bad. It looks bad. By the way, the best move here was E5. And I think I've played in a similar position to this. You go D4. Yeah. And the question is, do you take en passant or not? And the answer is surprisingly no. And this is almost like a two knights French. If you watch my recap games from the tournament I played in recently, a game very similar to this, and you play it like a two knights French, which is so weird to say, but it gets you a nice position. And you get F4 in as well, which gives you ample opportunities to attack. Yeah, and this looks weak. It looks like you've pushed so many pawns in front of your king, but it's surprisingly hard, especially because in the Sicilian they're playing on the queen side rather than the king side, which is okay. So yeah, they decide to push B5, B4, sorry, straight away, and the correct move is knight A4, which I said was a bit wild, I think, but apparently not. Apparently the C pawn is just weak because I guess they want to push D5, so that sort of limits them maybe if they move the bishop away. I don't really know. We move the knight back, which is safe at least safe. The bishop goes to B7. I thought was fine. And then F5. Not a bad move. It says it's an inaccuracy, but it loses about 0.6 of an evaluation. The correct move is E5. And then castles. And I guess you're playing on this diagonal, which doesn't look entirely safe, but you know the computer is right. They pushed E5, which was sort of asking to lock things up. I thought takes, we castle. Yes, that is the best move. The book I've been reading has been paying off. And you can sometimes leave this, but it says takes. And you've just opened up so many more lines that the theme of the game has just shifted so much from a slower to a we're gonna go after each other's throats sort of thing, and it's so cool. They decide to push, and here c4 is the move, which is not anything I would ever have considered. They're never going to take, because then you sort of fix my problem with my knight. Maybe you could make an argument for taking with the c-pawn to stop their outpost on d4, but the knight covers quite nicely. And we decide to sort of push on the king side. I thought h5 was a good move. Again, not losing too much evaluation. It's asking for this c4 idea, but everything else is good. Queen d2, apparently not ideal. You just castle. Now, castling in this situation is weird. It makes sense because they are clearly pushing on the queen side, and this isn't going anywhere. But at the same time, like if you ever take, takes with the pawn opens up immediate lines. So, I don't know. I want to see what else there is here. If the computer ever loads. Castles, knight d2 apparently. Oh, and you go in that way. But then you saw, oh no, and this knight controls d4. Ah, that's clever. That is clever. Again, c4. And then bishop takes, apparently also a decent move. Which I think you could have done at any point, really. I think you could have done that at any point. We go queen d2. And c4. Really? c4. That's crazy. That's really crazy. What's your idea after takes? Oh, you just hang a pawn. And that's a really important pawn not to hang, because you're getting forked. That's really important. So you can't be doing that. So you just castle out of it, apparently. And then they've suddenly sprung to life with their pushes. And that could potentially get very, very tricky very quickly. Yeah, I don't know about this one. Black seems to have a lot of counterplay all of a sudden. And it seems like white's on the back foot a bit. They decide to go queen a5, thankfully. And I go with this knight maneuver. Again, it's wanting c4, which is, I just missed completely. I didn't even register as a potential move. Just looking to open up the position. We go knight c1, which again, not bad. Not great. And then knight b3 apparently loses a bit more. It's a bit more of a significant one. And again, c4, if they take, we just missed that was hanging. Which makes sense of why you maybe take this knight earlier. We go queen e3. Now I guess c4 won't work, because we are actually covering this e-pawn. Apparently this is fine. When then they take there and they get pressure on the c-pawn, which is a bit nasty. Okay, you could ignore it though. You could potentially ignore it. Play it like a c3. Oh no, you get forked then. That's that's awful. Castles you still get forked. Yeah, I don't think you've got any other option. I think you have to take it. Knight takes, rook c1 covers, but then like a4 you don't have the c1 square, but you wanted to go to d2 anyway, so maybe that's not that bad. Queen f2, you're moving your queen again, but then maybe you're making room for the bishop, potentially. And then yeah, knight takes, king d1, apparently a valid move, is insane. Is really, really insane. We move the knight back and play b3. So we sort of wanted to lock this up. Maybe we could have let it loose a bit more. And pushing definitely was a mistake from them. I like takes. And I would definitely consider both. In fact, taking with even the knight as well, potentially. But then push c4 again, so maybe not. I think you can take with either. I think you can weirdly take with either. Takes with the c pawn. You got pressure on the a pawn, but you also have this really nice outpost on c4. Take with the a pawn is the more solid thing to do, because you still get the outpost, and you can just trade off when you need. And to be fair, with them not being castled, it's a bit more of a threat as well. Makes sense. They push, which, yeah, I'm hopping the knight in there straight away. Takes. And then d6 was their mistake, because you had to go knight h7 for some unbeknownst reason. Yeah, taking is logical. Taking's very logical, because the bishops the bishops can't do much on the light squares. It's all very locked up. They pushed d6. To be fair, I like that move. You're very secure here. Maybe your bishop's a bit unhappy, but I'm gonna trade this. And like we said, you've potentially got some play on like g5 with check after long castles or something. Long castles. So the knight back to h8 trades off your bad piece, which is smart. Gets the king up at the same time, and the knight can maneuver once again. So yeah, that's quite nice. They hop the knight in. And I thought about leaving this, but at the same time, like, I don't want to let them take stuff whenever they feel like it. You know, I want to be in control. The move was queen e1, which is insane. And I still don't see any win out of this. But we decided to take. And then, yeah, taking with the e-pawn was definitely the better thing to do. And this gives white and black an advantage of minus 1.0. So slightly better for black, but also, you know, you're going to struggle to make anything of it. You don't have the threat of e5 because of bishop to e5 blocking the pawn push. And then this is shuffle city, really. Not really anyone. Black has some breaks they could potentially do. White could potentially break on g4, but at the end of the day, not much is going to happen. You've got to be a bit careful with the e-pawn, maybe. They take with the c-pawn, evens up a bit. And apparently, yeah, this is not good because we needed the queen on the dark square to stop the check, which caused us some problems, actually. We should have played h4 just to stop this and accepted the draw. We wanted to be a bit more attacking because I felt we had a bit of an advantage. The computer disagrees. And I think takes here was definitely the correct thing to do. Apparently rook g1 also works. G1 also works. But like check is just so annoying. Yeah, and then the bishop comes to e3 as well. Not nice. You know, and you're definitely not winning that. We took, and they should have taken with the rook as well, just so you still have the bishop there. And we go there just to stop that. And maybe we can put some pressure on the g-pawn, but with the bishop there, nothing's really happening. And we're almost stuck defending the h-pawn. But I think at the end of the day, neither of us are really doing much. Is that not a blunder? Oh, no, because rook takes. Duh. Yeah, neither of us are really making much progress. Rook g1 hits the pawn, and the bishop goes back. Apparently this is better, and you let me take? Really? Really? That's insane. Oh, they have check there. Ah, that's it. That's a nice little trick, that. Nice little trick. Yeah, that's actually really cool. That's really cool. And then you've significantly weakened your king side. And I would be a tiny bit scared in this situation. A tiny bit scared. But they've got to find that d5 move, which looks like it just blunders a piece. Wow. They go back, and I'm like, I guess we'll double the rooks, or prepare to at least. But yeah, not much is happening, and we were sort of lucky we won on time there, to be honest. But that's how it goes sometimes. It's wild that time is still a threat in this long time control. But anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you all enjoyed. Please like if you liked. Please subscribe if you really liked. And I'll catch you guys all tomorrow. Bye-bye.